The European Union and United States have stepped up their criticism of the military in Myanmar for using deadly force against protesters. In a statement, the EU Foreign Policy Chief Joseph Borrell described the killing of more than 100 protesters on Saturday as a day of horror and shame. The US President Joe Biden said it was absolutely outrageous that an awful lot of people had been killed totally unnecessarily. Well, Andrew Hayne is the former UK ambassador to Myanmar. Andrew, then firstly, starting with the regime, do you think they have made a decision just to keep escalating things?
Well, it looks like that may be on the cards. This follows the previous practice that there were uprisings in Burma or Myanmar in 1988 and in 2007. And after a period of repression, but not a brutal crackdown, some weeks in, that was exactly what happened. And so there must be a risk that what we saw on Saturday is a harbinger of that and that there is worse to come.
Yeah, and Saturday was the worst day so far, wasn't it, in terms of violence and killings?
It was, but there have been several days of killings before that. The numbers of dead are now into I think somewhere in the 400s. So, although Saturday was a terrible day and rightly condemned by the EU, US, UK have all made statements, these killings have been going on for several weeks now.
And does it seem like the protesters are willing to go on longer than in previous uprisings?
Yeah, I mean, it does look that way. I think what in previous uprisings, the protests were mainly centered around the main population centers of Myanmar. This time, they're all over the country. This is the first time you've had protests with social media and VPNs in place. So it's far harder for the military junta to lock down the information coming in and out of Myanmar.
Are there any signs of either side backing down?
Not yet, no, and that is particularly worrying. And at the moment, it looks like the military have really painted themselves into a corner. But all of the signs, the people I'm speaking to in Myanmar, are absolutely determined to carry on with their protests. They've had, this was a democratic government that had been in power for 5 years, was re-elected, and on the day before it was due to retake office, the military just kicked them out. And Myanmar people went through 50 years of military rule, and they're not prepared to see that reinstated.
And we were talking about the comments there from the EU's foreign policy chief and from President Biden as well. Do you think those comments will do anything potentially to help the situation?
Well, statements alone won't, of course, reverse the coup, but they do matter because when the protesters hear that, they realize that they know that the international community is with them. It also makes clear to the generals that this is not being accepted as a fait accompli, that all of these atrocities and the coup itself has been rejected by the West. What really matters now is that Myanmar's allies and neighbours in Asia step up to the plate, particularly their ASEAN neighbours, and put pressure on the military to step down.
Where do you think this could lead then, or what potentially could happen next if, as you were saying, there's no sign of either side backing down?
Well, something will have to give. And obviously what everybody is most afraid of is that what will give is that the army will simply crack down and just start killing even more people. That will only make the protesters more angry. So trying to predict where this goes next is incredibly difficult. And that's why I mentioned about the importance of ASEAN countries, Myanmar's neighbours, getting involved to try to get a solution which gives the military some way to get themselves out of the corner into which they painted themselves and make it clear that it will not be business as usual for Myanmar under this military regime, which is killing its own people.